When we investigate Christmas, we not only have to separate the commercial aspects of Christmas from the spiritual roots of the holiday, but we also need to drill down deeply into the historical record to determine exactly what did take place in Bethlehem 2,000 years ago. Because sometimes we find that legends have contaminated the actual account of what really took place. Let me give you an example. Here's the storyline we typically hear at Christmas, even in many of our churches. To comply with a census being conducted by the Roman Emperor Augustus, Joseph and the pregnant Mary set out on a donkey to go to Bethlehem, since Joseph was a descendant from the house of David. The baby starts to arrive as they approach the village, so they urgently are seeking shelter. But the mean old innkeeper tells them there's no vacancy. That is, there's no room for them at the inn. And this forces Mary and Joseph into a nearby stable or cave where Mary gives birth amongst the animals. The child is then wrapped in swaddling clothes and placed in a manger. Sounds familiar, right? And yet, as I investigated Christmas, I found that that's probably not exactly what happened in terms of how Luke describes the real Christmas. First, it would have been unthinkable in the first century for anyone to turn away a pregnant Jewish woman who was seeking shelter. I mean, hospitality was such an extremely high value in those days. In fact, one scholar said to turn away a descendant of David in the city of David would be an unspeakable shame on the entire village. The person who turned her away would be ostracized from the community. Second, and I'm sorry if I pop any bubbles or meddle with any Christmas carols here, but there was probably no inn and probably no innkeeper. Yeah, there were some commercial lodgings that were available in the first century, but probably not in Bethlehem. It was a small community, and it wasn't on a major road. Besides, many scholars doubt whether Luke is talking about a hotel at all. You see, the Greek word that many Bibles translate as inn is katalima. This word is used twice in the New Testament, where Luke and Mark describe the place where the Last Supper was held. Now, in that instance, the word clearly means a spare or upper room in a private house. Now, if Luke had wanted to describe a commercial lodging of some sort, he had another Greek word he certainly would have used. But he didn't use that other Greek word. He did when he told the parable of the Good Samaritan in Luke chapter 10. But here, Luke specifically chose the word katalima to talk about the birth of Jesus. And katalima is best translated as guest room. In fact, the NIV Bible translates Luke 2, verse 7, as saying that Mary gave birth, wrapped Jesus in cloths, and placed him in a manger, quote, because there was no guest room available for them. Many scholars say this is the most accurate translation. In fact, as far back as the year 1395, John Wycliffe's translation of Luke 2, verse 7, rendered katalima as a chamber or a room, not some sort of commercial inn. But then subsequent translations, for some reason, and that includes the King James Version, use the word inn, and that's become part of our Christmas culture. Now, in his book, Urban Legends of the New Testament, scholar David Croteau describes how first-century homes looked in the Middle East. There was generally one large room broken down into two parts. There was the family room, where cooking and eating and sleeping took place. And then there were a few steps down to the animal room, where the family donkey, cow, and a sheep or two would be kept. Now, these animals were brought inside the last thing at night, and they're taken outside the first thing in the morning. Now, this floor in the animal room was slanted toward the outside for easy cleaning. But sometimes the larger animals would come up the stairs into the family room. And so each area had its own manger or feeding trough, which was usually built into the floor and filled with hay for the animals to eat. Now, here's the thing. Some houses added a second room off